Hello everyone and happy Friday, and thank you for joining today. Welcome to Join George. I'm George and I run a webinar series from the Purple Monster Studio, which is where I am today. I've got my producer running all the tech, making sure you can see me and hear me, of course, and the same for my guest, who I will introduce in a few moments. Please do know that this is live, and if you've joined today, you can ask any questions to our expert, Lisa Reynolds. So don't be shy, please type away. There's never a silly question. Please feel free. I can see your responses on my laptop here. So just to make sure everybody knows that this should be free-flowing and you're welcome to ask any question you like. So I wanted to talk to you about why I've invited Lisa to join me today. I came across Lisa via LinkedIn. It's a wonderful, fantastic networking business tool that we have. I've met loads of fantastic people via LinkedIn. And so I stumbled across Lisa and immediately felt, that she would be able to help me. I could just, again, you get a sense of somebody even through that written format. And I was very fortunate enough to win Lisa's giveaway that she held last year. And so it was an in-depth online assessment about strengths, of course, which is what we'll talk about today. And then after that, I did an online assessment, and then Lisa and I spent some time digesting and unpacking it. And it's safe to say I felt very seen, not just of course by Lisa, but actually by myself, which is an interesting concept, to actually really go, oh yeah, I see that about myself now, that perhaps I hadn't really noticed that before. And Lisa will join me in a moment, but she is running that giveaway again this year. So those of you on the call, be ready to sign up for it, is what I'd say. I can definitely recommend it. I'm just wondering if anyone wants to type their name in and I can say hello to you. Please feel free to do so that, again, it feels like a nice conversation. And I can check in. So, yes, thank you all for joining. And now, without further ado, I will welcome Lisa Reynolds, the Strengths Coach, our guest today. Good morning, Lisa.
Hello. Good morning. And what a lovely, lovely intro that was. And it's so nice to hear your feedback. We've spoken about feedback previously, but it's lovely to hear.
Yeah, and I can't actually remember. It would have been at the start of last year that we had that session, because your giveaway is sort of a January kind of movement, isn't it? Yeah. So it would have been, I don't know, maybe February or March. And and I don't know if I've given you this feedback, Lisa. I'm sure you'll have seen it on LinkedIn, that I did have one of the best years of my career last year. I really did.
That's so lovely to hear.
I really, really did. And I think you definitely helped kickstart that. You'll know yourself as a coach, there's always many things that kind of attribute to your success, or you feeling fulfilled, as we'll talk about today. But definitely having that session with you gave me some lovely clarity, and again, understanding those strengths, and that actually when you feel like you're perhaps not sure where you are and you're treading water a little bit, they're a brilliant focus to come back to. I've gone back to, again, I had an online assessment and it gave me sheets of paper, and I do go back to it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, great.
That's great to
now,
hear.
Today we'd like to cover three points, and we've only got half an hour, but we'll do our best. First of all, obviously I'm talking there about strengths, and you helped me understand them, and I felt very seen. How do you even begin to go about spotting your unique strengths? Where do you even start with that?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's about making time, because I think the majority of us don't often look at ourselves or spend time really introspecting. Yeah. And especially in relation to careers, for most people, some people are very clear about what they want their career to be, but certainly for me, I fell into what I originally did prior to sort of getting into psychology and coaching and things like that. So, and I think then we can get into just following what is the next step based upon an organisational structure. and collecting skills. So I think the first place to start is to make some time. I think it might help if I perhaps explain what strengths are, because I think that is an important point for the discussion.
Yes, please.
I use the word strength in lots of different ways, physical strength. So sometimes as the strengths coach, I get messages about, do I offer, like weight training and things
PT
like that?
sessions,
Occasionally.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I don't.
No,
That's so far from actually my zone of genius. But as a positive psychologist, strengths forms a core part of positive psychology theory, and strengths are qualities that energize you and that you're great at or have the potential to become great at. And they are unique to you. They're at the heart of motivation and authenticity, and they're really, when you're operating, particularly at work, in your strengths, you feel it. You feel that sort of intrinsic energy. And conversely, when you're operating in areas that are de-energizing, you feel that sort of meh feeling. That's the best way that I can describe it. It is kind of how you feel, but translated into careers, performance, fulfillment, all that good stuff. How you spot them, we quite often think of our skills as strengths, and that's not always the case. So we, in careers, quite often, as I say, we go and we think, right, okay, I can learn how to do X, Y, and Z, and we can become really good at it. But actually, those things might not necessarily sit in our strength areas. They might actually be in our de-energizing areas. And I coach across the spectrum within organizations predominantly, and people working in businesses or owning businesses. And it's quite interesting to see, particularly more senior people perhaps go and pursue avenues that they're doing good work, but actually they're not enjoying as much as perhaps roles in their earlier stage career. So so that's I think sort of setting the context. I haven't answered your question specifically about spotting strengths, but I can give you some tips for sure.
And again, I guess I'm sitting here from a privileged position, having worked with you last year, like we said. But that point around spotting a strength is actually around feeling the energy. That for me is kind of, headline. Obviously there's more to it than that, but that's it, isn't it? It's like you say, it's not necessarily about skills. It's about an energy that you feel when you're performing a strength or delivering a strength, maybe. And then, like you say, those other aspects of work, and where you feel de-energized, or like you say, meh. And of course, I grew up with a sort of self-employed father who taught us to just graft, just to get up, go to work, and be grateful you've got a job, and that sort of mentality. And so, I think there's probably a lot of people that, like you say, have just fallen into jobs and feel like it's 9 to 5 or even beyond, of course, that they're just doing the skills, they're doing something, and then perhaps they find fulfillment outside of work. But what we're talking about today is actually finding fulfillment in your career, of course. Not just success, like you say, sort of the pay or the status, but the fulfillment. Yeah. And that
absolutely.
It's so special, I think, kind of finding that in your work. And then Lisa, then. So again, let's talk about how you then learn to lean into those strengths to enhance your confidence, of course. That's the next point. It's how to lean into them to enhance your confidence.
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, knowing what they are and having that time to sort of sit and have time to think about, well, actually, at work, when do I feel at my best? What kind of things am I doing? Equally, when am I feeling de-energized? And actually, with skills, and the difference between skills and strengths, with your skills, and I'll give you an example. When I first trained in a strength psychometric called Strength Scope and got my report back, as we all do, because we all as humans have a negativity bias. So of course I looked at my strengths and thought, yeah, agree with those. And I went straight to my lowest one or two.
Yeah.
And one of them was detail orientation. And I was flabbergasted because my career to date, and I've been in the world of work, and I was quite senior at that point. You know, I was running my business, Talent Performance, which I set up in 2009. So, you know, I thought I knew myself quite well, and detail orientation came down as a 1 or 2, really low on the scale. And I thought, this has got to be wrong. This isn't right. I am so good at detail. I really find detail important. I spot things, you know. I can't be low on detail orientation. And what I came to learn was I am really skilled in detail. And it's important to me. However, in order to deliver detail, so report writing, which I have to do a lot of, it takes a lot of energy for me to be able to do it well. And so I can't do it for long periods. And at that point, I consistently would, you know, stay at home for 2 days, Thursday, Friday, you know, at least once a month to write reports or to do that type of detail-oriented work. And it made sense to me then that the weekends after those 2 days, I would feel fairly worn out. Friday night, I'd feel, you know, wouldn't want to go out, just you know, quite grumpy probably. And that's the difference in terms of skill and in terms of strength. And so the spotting, going back to the spotting and the leaning into, it's asking yourself questions in terms of, okay, so whatever your job is and whatever you're doing on a daily basis, of all those different tasks, you know, if you've got a job profile, or that's often a good place to start. But those tasks, which of those, give them an out of 10 in terms of which are most energizing, which are least energizing, and start to think about when do I feel at my most real, my most authentic, when am I most, you know, kind of relaxed, but also energized, you know, in that sense of flow. When is it that I'm doing stuff? So for me, having conversations with people, you know, I've got high relational strengths. I need plenty of that so that when I go back to doing my detail, which I'm good at and skilled at, I can do it in small bursts of an hour or 90 minutes and can do it really well. But I can use my strengths that are natural. And all the evidence and science and research in terms of strengths development shows that your strengths sort of develop from quite young. Okay. So, you know, so they are, particularly your top ones, they do tend to be there from quite a young age. But again, our education system and our world of work doesn't really look through that lens of what naturally gives you that energy, makes you feel good. Because in terms of what we know about performance and well-being and fulfillment, is that if you've got skills in area of strength, and I do this with my hands, but thinking about a Venn diagram with 2 circles, and they come together, the bit in the middle is where you're going to see performance, well-being, fulfillment. Added to that, also, you want to have the context. So sort of choosing environments in which you can develop your skills in areas of strength, and you can sort of be supported to do that. So that's important, because obviously if you're in an environment that you can't develop skills in those areas of strength, or your strengths aren't appreciated, then that's going to have an impact overall in terms of performance and your confidence and your fulfillment.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Lisa. It's a fantastic example around the detail, and like you say, your energy, is higher when you're working with other people, and that relationship element is a really high point for you. Whereas you say your detail, of course, your skill set is high, but your energy would be lower around it. And And I remember, of course, talking to you about this last year with regards to myself. And I feel that, again, I've been lucky enough to work for an organisation where we are small. There's 9 of us. And actually, I can speak up very confidently and say, right, everybody, I know I've got to do this element of my job. I know it's important. I do prioritise it. I do see how important it is, and one, I can do it, and if I can't do it, I'll learn the skills I need to deliver that element. But it isn't where I'm happy, And everybody goes, yeah, okay, thanks, absolutely, George, we get that. And then now I can identify that as a part of my job that has to be done. But then, like you say, I balance that out now by going, but like you, Lisa, I need to be around people. I love working together in collaboration. It's really important to me that I am so much more productive when I have somebody to bounce off. Even if actually sometimes their skill set isn't particularly necessary. What I mean is like a detailed piece of work. Actually it's just that ability to go, right, I see it like this and this is how I want it to be done. I can smash it out then, rather than sitting on my own and doing it. That is that's not a happy place for me to work. And so just reflecting what you said back towards myself around how I've managed to make sure I'm getting my job done, but making sure I'm getting my energy and working to my strengths as and when I can, and leaning into that, and identifying where there's a piece of work that is low energy for me, but working a way of making it higher. And that means sometimes for me bringing someone else in. So thanks, Lisa. It's fantastic. I'm just going to see if we have any questions. Has anybody got any questions for Lisa around that? Excuse me while I'm fiddle with my earpiece. As I said at the beginning, guys, any questions, fire them on here, and I can ask them to Lisa live, as that's what it's all about today. And they're quiet today, Lisa. I don't know why. Maybe everyone's feeling a bit Friday, but the audience is...
Psychology. Sometimes it can make people quiet. I'm not scary, so
yeah, no, you're not scary.
Well, also I think it's a concept as well.
Yeah.
When I introduce it, that takes a while to sort of think about and just a lot of people kind of need a moment, even when I'm working one-to-one in those sort of strengths conversations, just to kind of think about, okay, because it's different to perhaps how it certainly was for me when I got into this area where I went, so hang on, what I've been taught really that I should be good at everything. Number one, to be well-rounded, I should fix all my weaknesses, I should be able to do everything. That's kind of the narrative certainly that I found in the workplaces that I'd operated in, and that's quite a different approach. The traditional development sort of theory was very much about fixing weakness, and as was psychology as a field, actually fixing mental health disorder, and positive psychology kind of turns that on its head. It doesn't avoid difficult, challenging situations, as concepts such as resilience and grit and hope and post-traumatic growth are all part of positive psychology. However, it says, let's focus more time and attention on getting us into our areas of strength, and then just work on the areas of the de-energizers, the weaknesses, or our strengths in overdrive, because that's another area that's important to be aware of, that our strengths can go into overdrive quite easily. So I'll touch upon that. But when I work with teams, and you talked about working with others, and we often talk about borrowing each other's strengths, because when you start to look at it from a team dynamic, what's really lovely is seeing where if you sit in a place that's about, I've got to be perfect, I've got to be able to do it all, I've got to be good at everything, I've got to be all of that, then it's very difficult to actually, and you all feel like that, to actually say, do you know what, I really am not energized by this. I'm okay at it, but because I'm never going to love it, and therefore, if you don't love something, you're never going to be amazing at that thing. Most likely, the data shows. So it's lovely when you've got an environment where people are talking about, well, this is when I'm at my best, and this is what I'm really energized by, and starting to work together. So my detail orientation. I've got a team member who is just like really high on detail orientation. We work so well together in lots of other ways, but particularly on that, we can really, because she's really energized by it. She doesn't get the depletion that I get. So it's lovely. Yeah. But the strengths in overdrive is a thing perhaps to touch on today.
Yes, let's come back to that. That lovely example you gave there, again, I've got a similar example, again, here at Purple Monster. We have a superb project manager called Katie. She is fantastic. I'm okay at project management because you need it, okay? We work on projects here, so, again, we get projects in, we've got to work out when things have to be delivered, who we need in the team. Of course, I get it, and I can make it work. But Katie just loves it. And we get a new piece of work in, and Katie goes, "Do you need a timeline?" And she's literally, you can see her glow at the prospect of putting together this timeline where the times and the deliverables have all got to be just so. And then, of course, when it all comes together and everybody follows it, she just is like, she's got a big warm blanket around her. She is so highly energized. That is such a strength of hers, and that's it. I can do it, but no, I'm never gonna have that glow about me when somebody says we need a timeline. Okay, yeah, I'll get that done. Sorry, Lisa, go on.
Yeah, so I just want to say, you and I both have enthusiasm as standout strengths, so we have to. I'm being really aware in this conversation, and you must stop me that I get really passionate and talk too much. That is a strength in overdrive.
Yeah, so not at all.
You must stop me when we talk about strengths in overdrive. So, as I say, from a developmental perspective, in terms of leaning into your strengths, it's first and foremost, how can I craft my job to do more of the stuff that energizes me? Guard against and work in perhaps a different way, structure things in a different way, like with my detail orientation. Think about things in a different way so you can make cognitive adjustments in terms of your existing role. Yeah. Think about the context, and obviously sometimes that does mean you realise that you can't, really optimise in the right way where you are. That might mean making a move. In terms of strengths in overdrive, and we all have them, it's about strengths in overdrive is where you use your strengths at the wrong time, the wrong place, with the wrong audience. You basically use, I talk about dialing up and dialing down your strengths, and it's where, like my enthusiasm, what my enthusiasm looks like is I get passionate and I'm talking too much, and, I might miss the person I'm talking to or the audience, I'm kind of missing those cues. So I'm really aware of that, and that's where I work on that and that development. So your strengths in overdrive your strengths can become a performance risk, and that's the other bit in terms of strengths development. The first part is kind of starting to think about and look through the lens of your strengths and discover them and start to sort of connect with them. And then it's about the strengths development bit is about learning to use them to the right amount in the right time. So that's the developmental piece, and that's ongoing. I trained in strengths assessment in over 10 years ago, and I'm still doing that on a daily basis. And I don't always get it right, because we're human.
I can definitely identify with exactly that, and I'll be honest, I had forgotten that you talked to me about that, of course, last year, and I'd forgotten. So this is a great reminder for me about that strengths in overdrive, because again, once you've kind of gone, oh yeah, great, these are my strengths. These are what make me feel great. They give me confidence. They make me happy, and all the rest of it. It's very difficult then to not go, bah, I'm going to go forward with these, and like you say, overdrive. without, of course, coming back and going, oh, yep, what have I missed? Yeah, so I'm just identifying myself that's definitely what I should work on this year. Having understood my strengths better last year and started to know when to use them and when to draw on others, of course, strength, Katie, other members of the team. Yes, the overdrive is definitely the one I need to keep an eye on. I've got a question about overdrive. Can you burn out? Is that a way, you know, you've identified a strength, you've leaned into it so far that you've exhausted it? Is that do you see that happen?
Good question. It's a good question. It's less likely that you'll burn out through being overdone in your strengths, although there are a few caveats to that. It's more likely that you will burn out through having to operate in high skill area where you've got low strength. So going back to my detail orientation and thinking back, you know, prior a number of years ago when I was in a role that had a lot of detail, a lot of sort of reporting, and actually I look back and I was bloody good at that job.
Yeah.
However, if you look back, it was the time where I was probably the closest to burnout and the most unhappy, although I didn't realise it at the time. So, and actually, if I look through a strengths lens, I can see I was like, well, actually, pretty much 80-90% of the time I was doing stuff. If I look at the report that we went through, which is Strength Scope, the wheel, I'd moved away from being really client facing and working with people. So I was managing teams doing that and overseeing teams doing that. So yeah, I think we tend to see it's more when people are not operating in their strengths. However, the strength of resilience, for example, the strength of compassion, some of those types of strengths can also have, when you're doing that too much, you're being resilient, and resilience is one where you are energized by taking on tough challenges. You're energized by meeting those tough challenges, and you're able to do it. But sometimes the burnout, the overdrive comes with you are seeking to do it too much and you're not having any rest. Equally with compassion, I see it, you know, people kind of reporting back, because in overdrive, compassion is putting everything and everyone before yourself. So the self-compassion goes out the window. So it's not a black and white answer, but the thing about your strengths is you can do them for longer, so you will get some energy even when you're overdoing them a little bit. So there's certain ones.
Yes. We've got a few comments, Lisa, so I'd love to read them out. Sam says, burnout is a very real thing for me if I am not careful. There have been times where I've taken a hobby and done it for work. This can definitely ruin the hobby.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Alana says, there we go. Alana says, when I am close to burnout, there is a false sense of job satisfaction because I am busy and doing things it feels proactive. When I stop, that gap feels uncomfortable, so I need to fill it again. Did I read that right, Lisa? Did you understand that?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think
when I'm close to burnout, there is a false sense of job satisfaction. Okay, so Alana means that she's working so well, or she thinks it's so well, but actually she's so close to burnout, but she feels that she's being really on it and productive, and she gets this false sense of job satisfaction because I'm so busy. And then when that stops, there's a gap, and then she feels uncomfortable. But actually, she's operating at burnout and thinking falsely that that's good. So again, she needs to work out. Oh, what would your advice be? I was going to try and do it myself, but you're here.
So, from a strengths perspective, I would think it would be a good idea. You know, I think with my psychology and looking more broadly, in terms of feeling that sense of false satisfaction, but also then, you know, in terms of your nervous system, that burnout comes when you sit in sympathetic response, which is fight, flight, or freeze, when you've got a ongoing chronic level of stress that your nervous system and therefore your brain and your immune system, you can't recover from. However, that is interesting, that sort of sense of discomfort at stopping. So I guess my question, which is not necessarily strengths related, would be, is there a sense, it will probably be to do with, is the work giving you something, and is there something else that perhaps when you stop, the work is, you're avoiding something, and so the busyness of work is keeping you distracted. Because work can sometimes, we can use work.
Something else. Yeah.
I definitely do that. You know, if I'm work for me because I really enjoy it and I get a lot of satisfaction, but equally I have to, you know, I have to have my own supervision in the work that I do and make sure that I don't deplete myself, because I love people and I love serving others and all of that stuff. Yeah. But also you have to keep yourself well. So I think it's great awareness to know that that is something that you have that awareness of. I hope that helps. I'm trying not to go into too much because we're in the
No, but I mean,
feel free to drop me a message, and I can Alana, sort of answer that more individually.
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks for putting the comment in, Alana. Appreciate that. A couple of more. I think Sam's just having a little bit of fun. He says, he's advising Alana just to fill it with the next job. So Sam's the positive psychologist now. So yes, he's just talking about, again, feeling guilty when you take a break. Again, this is slightly different to the strengths work, but again, just I think it comes back to what you said at the beginning about sometimes this work, it takes a while to sit, doesn't it? So again, actually, what we're getting some lovely comments here, but people are just starting to dig, to start to sit into the surface of when I'm busy or when I'm not busy and when I'm feeling good. And again, it takes a while to go, whew. And then what's sitting underneath, like you say, can be a real surprise and an eye-opener. Like you say, your detail element of skill set, but not a strength. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And what I would say as well is the work that I do with individuals and within organisations is very much about the inside job of success, fulfilment across leadership, careers, business. Yeah. So it is this bit, and I think the majority of us don't make enough time, don't put ourselves first, and life and work is busy. And we were just saying before this, weren't we, George, about how I was saying feels like it's about 3 months after Christmas, my post-Christmas relaxed feeling, and I love what I do, and I'm doing all this stuff and applying all this stuff. But this week I've been so crazily busy that if you don't make time for your both personal development and professional development, the two go hand in hand, it won't happen, right? So that's the thing. It's you have to make time, and everybody, I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands of people now over 16 years in business this year, and that is the number one thing, people actually making time for their own themselves. Yeah. Themselves. We can call it development, but
Fantastic. Lisa, I think that's a sort of lovely way to end, really, on that, on, like you say, time. There's no shortcuts, is there, here? You have to do the work, you have to invest. Give yourself the time, and of course, it's all there for us all to take and to lean into. And so hopefully there'll be many of us stepping into that space this year. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to just put your details up on the screen now so that anyone on the call can find you easily. So either via LinkedIn, or I think we've got your website there. So if we could just get those up on the screen, and then anyone can make a note of those. There we go, Lisa Reynolds, the Strengths Coach. And there's Lisa's details. And I'll also make sure we pop those in the chat. And so back to Lisa, just to say thank you very much. Happy Friday. And have a lovely weekend. And I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, take care. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Lisa. Bye. Bye.